The story begins in one of the coldest regions of America, a remote, desolate land completely buried under thick snow. Winter has taken over everything, silence, stillness, and an endless white wilderness stretching as far as the eye can see. In this frozen emptiness, a young girl is running. She's staggering through the snow, struggling to keep her balance. Her breath is sharp and broken. Fear is written all over her face. She tries to push forward, but her body is giving up on her. For a moment, she thinks about stopping, but something inside her forces her to keep going. The next day, we meet a man named Corey Lambert, a skilled hunter known for tracking even the most dangerous predators. That morning, he spots a pack of wolves in the wilderness. With a single, precise shot, he takes one down. The rest scatter immediately into the forest. Corey isn't just a hunter, though. He's also a father. And he had promised his son a full day together. He calls Casey his son, who shows up ready, rifle on his shoulder, prepared for the outdoors. Corey takes him along and drives to his grandparent home. There, he tells Casey to wait for a while. He just needs to check something nearby, and we'll be right back. But this isn't just a casual trip. Corey is actually here for work. His father-in-law has asked him to locate a missing cow calf. The ranchers are worried. They suspect a mountain lion has entered the area, threatening their livestock. That's why they called Corey. But when Corey goes out tracking, something feels off. He finds footprints, but they don't look like a mountain lion's. They look human. Soon, he notices blood in the snow. His instincts kick in immediately. He pulls gear from his bag, grips his pistol, and carefully follows the trail step by step. This is the same path someone ran through recently. The snow hasn't fully covered it yet. The footprints start to change, from running to stumbling to barely moving. Corey follows the blood deeper into the wilderness. And then he finds her. A young girl lies motionless in the snow. Her body is frozen. Her bare legs are exposed to the deadly cold. Blood and ice are mixed in her mouth. Without wasting a second, Corey calls for emergency help. But getting assistance here is not easy. The FBI will take time. The roads are nearly impossible due to the storm. Tribal Police Chief Ben arrives and immediately gives strict instructions. Do not move the body. Do not disturb the scene until federal investigators arrive. But Corey isn't comfortable with waiting. The snow is getting heavier. Every minute matters. Soon, all traces could disappear. He pushes for answers. Where did she run from? How did she end up here? He asks Ben for permission to investigate further, alone if necessary. But Ben refuses. Corey already suspects something deeper. He believes the girl is Natalie. But Ben refuses to confirm anything until official identification is done. Later, a vehicle arrives. A young FBI agent steps out, Jane Banner. But there's a problem. She came alone and completely unprepared for this kind of extreme weather. She's freezing in light clothing, clearly struggling in a harsh cold. She explains she was sent here in the middle of her training, an assignment that clearly should have had more support. It looks out of place, almost unreal, an FBI agent arriving in a rental van in the middle of nowhere. Casey's grandmother gives Jane warm clothing. The clothes belong to her granddaughter. Jane doesn't seem comfortable, but she has no choice. When Jane steps outside again, Corey freezes for a moment. Something about her reminds him of painful memories tied to his own daughter. By now, Corey already believes his daughter is likely gone. He just doesn't know the full truth of what comes next. He tells Casey he'll return in a few hours. Later, after the storm settles, Corey and Jane return to the site together. Tribal Police Chief Ben is already there with his team. The area is secured, but everyone knows the weather could turn again at any moment. Tension builds immediately between Corey and Ben. Corey insists, I know this girl. It's Natalie. Jane examines the body carefully and confirms this needs a full forensic investigation immediately. Corey explains the girl's home isn't far from here. She lived nearby. But strangely, no missing person report was ever filed. That raises more questions. Why was she barefoot in freezing snow? Jane turns to Corey and asks what he thinks happened. Corey studies the tracks and explains it clearly. She ran for a long time in freezing conditions. Eventually, her body gave out. She collapsed from exhaustion and exposure, and likely died from pulmonary hemorrhage caused by extreme cold damaging her lungs. Jane asks Corey if he will help with the investigation. Corey agrees. He makes it clear hunting animals is one thing, but tracking humans is something entirely different. Still, he knows what he's capable of. Later that night, Corey prepares bullets in silence. His son, Casey, notices and approaches him. He asks about Natalie. He's hurt enough to feel uneasy. Is it happening again? He asks. Corey doesn't know how to answer. The next day, Jane discovers something disturbing. No official missing person report exists because Natalie had been living away from her family. She left home years ago and had been living with her boyfriend since she was very young. The medical examiner confirmed she had been in a violent situation for a long time before her death. Multiple injuries, signs of assault, but they can't confirm whether there was one attacker or more. However, one thing is clear. The cause of death matches exactly what Corey predicted: pulmonary hemorrhage. At this point, the examiner officially classifies the case a homicide. Now the real investigation begins. The only problem is they still don't know where she ran from. And worse, they have almost no evidence left to follow. Jane stands there, overwhelmed, realizing how little they actually have to work with. He explains that if he sends this report to his superiors, they'll pull him off the case entirely. In other words, no more government support. Everything is now hanging by a thread. Despite that, the interrogation begins immediately in an attempt to uncover any lead. The first person they speak to is Natalie's father. He becomes visibly irritated by Jane's questions. He insists that his daughter had been living with her boyfriend and had never even introduced him to the family. They knew nothing about her personal life. Inside the house, Natalie's mother is in the bedroom. Ben signals Jane to leave her alone for now. She's grieving, he warns. But Jane still steps inside. Natalie's mother is there, broken, crying uncontrollably, her body bent over in pain. She sits in silence, completely shattered. At that moment, Corey arrives. The moment Natalie's father sees him, everything changes. The tension disappears instantly. No anger. No words. Just shared grief. They embrace each other in silence, a moment heavier than anything said so far. Corey speaks softly. Sometimes he says it feels easier to hold on to the pain, but after losing his own daughter, he learns something important. You don't remember the loss. You remember the love. Not long after, Martin speaks up. He admits he doesn't know much, but mentions something important. His son has been involved with drugs and trouble. He hangs around a group called the Little Feather Boys. Natalie's brother may know more. That's enough to give them a direction. Soon Jane, Corey, and Ben head into the Little Feather Boys' territory. As they arrive, loud music blasts from inside the house. The atmosphere is tense, unpredictable. Ben explains there are 4 brothers, and none of them are easy to deal with. Corey circles to the back. Ben and Jane approach the front door. A young man named Sam answers. He looks intoxicated, unstable. He casually says his brother is in jail, and Natalie's brother isn't home. Then, in a sudden burst of violence, he sprays Ben and Jane with pepper spray. They're instantly blinded. Burning pain takes over their eyes. But Corey reacts without hesitation. He grabs a shovel and strikes Sam down, knocking him to the ground. Another boy stumbles and falls as chaos breaks out. Jane, now half-blinded but still functional, draws her weapon and moves inside. Sam regains his footing and opens fire. Jane reacts fast, dodging bullets and returning fire. Sam collapses, coughing violently. She keeps him at gunpoint. Ben arrives moments later, taking in the scene. "We need to leave," he says firmly. Jane insists they call an ambulance. Sam might still survive. But it's too late. Sam takes his final breath. Outside, Frank and Chip are already in custody. Jane begins questioning Chip. When he learns about his sister's death, he breaks emotionally. In that moment, a crucial piece of information comes out. He knows who Natalie's boyfriend is. Jane suggests Chip should take them to him immediately. But Corey disagrees. He already knows something is wrong. Earlier, while tracking, he found fresh movement in the snow. Footprints leading up the mountain where Natalie's body was discovered, but none coming back down. That detail changes everything. Corey tells Jane the snow is still preserving the truth. But they're running out of time. Another storm could erase everything. They push forward. At the ridge, Corey stops the engine. The terrain is too dense for the sled. They continue on foot. But soon the trail ends. And what they find changes everything. Another body, half buried in snow, torn apart by wildlife. The scene is brutal, and the silence that follows is heavier than words. By evening, the entire area is flooded with police units. Ben explains they'll retrieve surveillance footage from the drilling site where Natalie's boyfriend worked. But the suspects remain silent. No one is talking. Corey asks if he can speak to them. Ben hesitates. Legally, any confession without an officer present won't hold in court. Still, there may be no other option. Jane steps aside briefly to take a call. In that moment, Ben makes a decision. He allows Corey to try. Corey approaches Chip alone. At first, Chip is defiant, angry at everything. He calls the town worthless, his life meaningless. But Corey doesn't back down. He grabs him, shakes him, and tells him the truth. His sister's killers are still out there, walking free in the same place they were born. The pressure breaks something inside Chip. He finally talks. Natalie's boyfriend is Matt. He works security at the drilling station. But Sam, the one who died, he knew more than anyone. He was the key. Now that lead is gone. Corey returns to Ben and Jane. Jane wants answers, but Corey says nothing. Ben simply tells them to meet at the rig in the morning. No further discussion. Soon after, Natalie's boyfriend is officially identified, Matt, a security worker at the drilling station. Later, Jane visits Corey's home to bring him water and check on him. Corey invites her inside, just to get out of the freezing cold. While Corey steps away, Jane looks at the family photographs on the wall. When he returns, he notices where she's looking. He points to one photo and quietly says, "My daughter's name was Emily." Jane expresses her sorrow, and in that moment, Corey begins to open up about a memory he has carried for years, a painful incident involving his daughter, Emily. At that time, Corey was working in another city in the United States. He had briefly left with his wife, Wilma, for a short trip. At home, their 16-year-old daughter, Emily, and young son, Casey, were left behind. That night, an unplanned party took place at their house. By morning, everything changed. Natalie, the person who had called him, informed him that Emily was missing. Not long after, a shepherd discovered Emily's body about 20 miles from home. But by the time she was found, wildlife had already damaged her remains severely. The autopsy revealed almost nothing useful. The memory hits Corey hard. His voice breaks as he speaks. Jane immediately realizes she may have pushed too far. The next morning, Ben escorts Jane to Matt's drilling station along with a group of armed officers. Corey follows separately, tracking through the snow using an alternate route. Jane briefs the new officers on the plan. They are to search Matt's trailer for any evidence connected to Natalie's murder. Corey is instructed to report anything suspicious over the radio. As Corey moves deeper into the snowfield, he follows animal tracks until he reaches the remains of a dead animal near the path. Meanwhile, at the station, workers mention that Matt has been missing for 2 to 3 days after an argument with his girlfriend. Jane notices something strange. 2 of the guards show visible injuries. When questioned, they dismiss it, blaming the harsh working conditions and lack of proper safety equipment provided by the company. The supervisor eventually begins searching Matt's trailer. From a distance, Corey uses binoculars and notices something alarming. The same tracks he has been following lead directly toward the trailer area where officers are now investigating. On the way, one of the guards casually asks Jane if Natalie ever officially reported Matt missing. Jane confirms that she did. That's when the guard says something that immediately changes the atmosphere. If she reported him, then you must already know a body was found. The entire group goes silent. Tension explodes instantly. Officers move into defensive positions. Guards reach for their weapons. The situation escalates into a standoff. The guards insist they haven't seen either Natalie or Matt in days, so there's no way they could know about anybody. But the truth is even more complicated. Natalie's murder had not been publicly disclosed yet. Only limited information had been released. Trying to control the situation, Jane steps forward. She warns them clearly that she is FBI, and if they've done anything wrong, there is nowhere they can hide in the country. Meanwhile, Corey tries to contact Ben over the radio, but there is no response. Something is wrong. Without hesitation, Corey grabs his rifle and sprints toward the trailer on foot. Inside the trailer area, Jane finds another guard named Pete inside, seemingly asleep and unaware of what's unfolding outside. Then the story shifts. A flashback begins. That night, Natalie arrives at Matt's trailer unexpectedly, hoping to surprise him. Matt is happy to see her. They embrace, relax, talking about plans for their future together. But their moment doesn't last. Voices are heard outside. Other guards return earlier than expected. Matt quickly hides the situation, trying to keep things calm. Natalie is changing inside when one of the drunk guards, Pete, sees her and behaves inappropriately. Matt immediately intervenes and forces him out. Tension builds. Moments later, Pete returns with another guard, and an argument erupts. One of them insults Natalie. She reacts and slaps him. Everything escalates in seconds. In a violent outburst, one guard grabs Natalie. Matt attacks him in rage, but he is quickly overwhelmed as the other men join in. They brutally assault Matt, striking him with a bottle and knocking him unconscious. Then they turn on Natalie. She is dragged away and assaulted. Matt, barely alive, manages to regain consciousness and tries to fight back, but it's too late. Natalie escapes during the chaos, running into the freezing night, looking back in horror as everything collapses behind her. She disappears into the snow. Back in the present, Jane is still at the trailer, knocking on the door, but it's locked from the inside. Curtis stands nearby, acting as if he hears nothing. Suddenly, a shotgun blast erupts from inside. Jane is hit and thrown backward by the force. Chaos explodes instantly. The guards open fire on the officers. Jane manages to return fire, taking down one of the attackers by shooting him in the leg. Then suddenly, a machine gun opens up from inside the trailer. The battle turns deadly. Jane watches in shock as Ben is struck and killed in the chaos. Curtis is still alive somewhere nearby, calling out to Jane through the gunfire and smoke. And everything spirals into total chaos. Corey suddenly raises his weapon, ready to fire. But before he can pull the trigger, a sniper shot echoes from the distance. Curtis drops instantly. It's Corey. The remaining guards try to react, but they don't stand a chance. One by one, they are taken down in the chaos. Only 2 are left alive inside the trailer. But not for long. One of them is killed moments later. The last remaining guard, Pete, panics. He smashes through a window and escapes into the freezing wilderness. Jane fires after him from beneath the trailer, but he keeps running, disappearing into the dark forest. A few moments later, Corey reaches Jane. She is quickly moved inside and placed on the couch in the trailer. Jane, struggling to stay focused, asks for the radio. If a helicopter arrives, it's their only way out. Corey takes the radio and calls it in. Then, calmly, he says, "I'm going after him." Jane understands immediately what that means. She doesn't stop him, because she knows this won't end with an arrest. Corey disappears into the snow, alone, exhausted. Breathing heavily in the freezing wind, he pushes forward through the forest. Pete, now completely desperate to survive, turns and fires blindly into the snow. But Corey is invisible. Dressed in white, blending perfectly into the blizzard. Pete can't see him at all. In seconds, Corey strikes. Pete is knocked unconscious. When he wakes up again, everything has changed. He is tied up, stuffed in a bag, blood on his face. Corey speaks calmly. "We are at the highest point of the mountain right now." Pete pleads to talk. Corey simply sits on a fallen tree and says quietly, "Go ahead. I'm listening." Pete slowly sits up, shaking. He realizes his shoes are gone. His feet are exposed to the freezing snow. Panic sets in. Corey watches silently. "Start talking," he says. "You don't have much time." And Pete breaks. He confesses everything. He admits he assaulted the girl, that he was part of what happened to Natalie, and that he also attacked Matt. He begs for jail. He wants law. He wants escape. But Corey tells him the truth. There is no law out here. Only me. After hearing everything, Corey cuts the rope and frees him. Then he says something chilling. "If you make it to the highway, you're free." That's more than Natalie ever got. Pete doesn't understand what's happening. Before he can react, Corey raises his rifle and fires near him, not to kill, but to trigger pure panic. Pete runs. Blind panic takes over. He sprints through deep snow, steep slopes, and freezing wind, falling, crawling, struggling like an animal just trying to survive. From a distance, Corey watches in silence. No emotion. No movement. Just observation. Eventually, Pete's body gives out. He collapses into the snow, gasping for air. And slowly, he dies there alone. Corey never fires again. Later, Corey visits Jane in the hospital. She survived. Weak but stable, she will recover. Corey tries to lighten the moment with a small joke. Jane even manages to laugh. He brings her a small stuffed toy, a quiet gesture in the middle of everything they've been through. Then Jane asks the question that won't leave her mind. How did that girl run 6 miles barefoot in that kind of cold? Corey answers simply. She wasn't running anymore. She was surviving shock. Later, Corey visits Natalie's father and tells him everything that happened. He urges him not to shut out his son, because now, more than ever, the family needs each other. The weight of everything settles in. And finally, the story leaves one question behind. Was Corey right or wrong to take justice into his own hands? That's something only you can decide. Let us know in the comments. See you in the next story.